Welcome to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, still the voice of the voiceless. This is the Real Leaders Debate. At least it can be if you join in. But above all, for that, I need your telephone calls. You ring us, we'll ring you back. Establish a clear line, and remember, if you get on the television with me, the volume on your television has to be down at 0. The number to call is 44-208-601-4555. You can SMS the show also 447800008066, or you can email me comment@presstv.co.uk. This being the 21st century, you can even send me a tweet at comment_presstv. All of the aforementioned will come up here on the comment wall. Tonight we're discussing the breakthrough at the talks in Switzerland between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the permanent 5 members of the United Nations Security Council, plus the European Union. It is an historic breakthrough, and there are some already who are so jaundiced and sick at the fact that an agreement has been reached that they are even now throwing mud at it. But the deal is the deal, and I'll be going through in the course of the next hour or so exactly what that deal means for the world and for Iran. Israel tried everything that it could to sabotage these negotiations, even to the point of dangerously damaging their own relations with the United States of America, upon which they absolutely defend. You'll recall that Netanyahu went to the United States Congress to spit in the face of the United States president, and the right-wing Republicans have been dancing a grisly duet with Netanyahu over this matter. But it's the President of the United States who makes foreign policy, who makes foreign treaties, and this one has the support of the world. Just a reminder of who the permanent 5 are: the United States, Russia, China, Britain, and France. Plus the European Union. That's quite a lot to have on your side, and I think that Netanyahu and the US Republicans now look rather foolish and are going to be left crying into their desserts this evening. So they got their just desserts. A deal was reached. Iran has pulled through a period of extreme economic sanction and political ostracization. We here at Press TV are just one of the minor victims of that. The reason you, if you're in Britain, are watching this on your computer is because we were taken off the Sky platform by Ofcom, acting on instruction from the British government. It was a clear, brazen political act. All these sanctions are now going to be lifted. Banking sanctions, trading sanctions, media sanctions. So, who knows? I may be coming back to a television set near you sometime soon. Iran has not backed down. It has preserved its vital national interests, as the leadership of Iran always said that they would. For those who didn't believe them, here are the highlights of the decision. The European Union's Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini and Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif took part in a joint press conference in the Swiss city of Lausanne on Thursday. The European Union's Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini and Zarif took part in that conference. Iran and the permanent 5+1 group of world powers have adopted a joint statement after marathon talks in the Swiss city of Lausanne, calling, among other things, for the removal of the United Nations Security Council resolutions and sanctions against the Islamic Republic. The statement was read out at that joint press conference. In the framework of the agreement, none of Iran's nuclear facilities, as well as its previous activities, will be stopped, shut down, or suspended. Iran's nuclear activities in all its nuclear facilities, including Natanz, Fordow, Isfahan, and Arak, will continue. These comprehensive solutions will guarantee the continued enrichment program inside Iranian territory, and according to this, Iran will be allowed to go on with industrial production of nuclear fuel, which is meant for running its nuclear power plants. According to the solutions, the joint plan of action for the enrichment program will cover a 10-year period, during which more than 5,000 centrifuge machines will continue producing enriched material at Natanz facility up to the level of 3.67%. Extra machines and the related infrastructure in the facility will be collected by the IAEA in order to be replaced by new machines consistent with the allowed standards. Accordingly, Iran will be allowed to allocate the current stockpile of enriched materials for the purpose of producing nuclear fuel or swapping it with uranium in the international markets. Iran will continue research and development program on advanced centrifuge machines and will also be able to keep initiating and completing its research and development program on IR4, IR5, IR6 and IR8 machines during the 10-year period of the agreement. For the Fordow facility, according to the joint statement, Fordow nuclear facility will be turned into a research centre for nuclear science and physics. More than 1,000 centrifuges will be maintained at this facility, and 2 centrifuge cascades will keep operating. In cooperation with the P5+1 countries, about half of the Fordow facility will be dedicated to advanced nuclear research and production of stable isotopes, which have important applications in industry, agriculture, and medicine. As for the Arak heavy water reactor, according to the statement, the heavy water reactor in the Iranian city of Arak will remain in place, but will be redesigned and updated. The redesigning process will greatly increase efficiency of the reactor while reducing the amount of plutonium produced in the facility. The redesigning process will be done according to defined schedule as an international project with the cooperation of Iran. Production of fuel for the Arak reactor and awarding international nuclear fuel production certificate will be among the international cooperation to be offered to Iran. So whether you follow the physics of that or not, what is clear is that this is a momentous political breakthrough. Iran has been sanctioned, quarantined, ostracized, and regularly threatened with war. Regularly threatened with war, especially from the only power in the region which has nuclear weapons, namely what they call Israel. But they've pulled through. They stood firm, they stood strong, they stood tall, and they have emerged victorious with an agreement with the world. The world minus Israel, but that may be a growing problem for Israel rather than for Iran. So, I'm a happy man tonight. He's a happy man tonight. Are you happy? Tell me your reaction to the joint statement that has just been released. The other subject that we're dealing with tonight is, of course, what's happening in Yemen. I put it this way: who is calling for the bombing of the Muslims and the Arabs? In Palestine, of course, we're used to almost every day casualties falling in the occupied, in the annexed, in the besieged Palestinian territories. But now we have it in Yemen. It is of great, indeed momentous, world consequences. What is happening now? Who is doing the bombing? Well, that's easy. Saudi Arabia. Who is planning the bombing? By its own admission, Who has the command and control cell which is in charge of the bombing? By their own admission, the United States of America. Now, as a coalition, that's not that surprising. Saudi Arabia and the United States are allies for the best part now of a century, certainly 75 years or so. But who else is in that coalition? Israel is in that coalition. Israel has openly declared its willingness to cooperate with the group of countries around Saudi Arabia in its war against the people of Yemen. That too is not all that surprising. But when you throw in ISIS, when you throw in Al-Qaeda in the Arabic Peninsula, you begin to see a coalition so grotesque, so ugly, that it's difficult to see how anyone can take it seriously. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Saudi Arabia, the United States of America, and Israel are all together in a coalition attacking Yemen, one of the very poorest countries in the world. And the consequences are absolutely devastating for civilian people. But of course, they will not alter the course of the conflict in Yemen. Just in the last 2 hours, the presidential palace in Aden, in the south of the country, on the coast, on the Gulf Coast, has fallen to the Revolutionary Army. Who are the Revolutionary Army? This is something I'm going to have to deal with again, as I tried to do last week, but some people simply refuse to see the truth. Some people are ready to fall for the falsehood that this is a Sunni-Shia conflict, that this is a war between Iran and Saudi Arabia, with Yemen just an unfortunate proximate cause. But none of that is true. First of all, the Houthis, who are undoubtedly a very powerful military insurgency, are a part of Yemen. They're not Iranians. They weren't sent there by Iran. They are Yemenis. They have lived there for thousands of years. The Houthis are not fighting this conflict alone. If they were, they wouldn't be winning, powerful as they are.